And look, South Park is known for satire and for mocking people. No one is safe. This isn't the first time they've done an episode on the royal family, but this particular episode was quite scathing in the grains of truth that it held. And I'm not sure how the Sussexes are taking it. Obviously, it is a cartoon.
You just can't leave us alone, can you? Oh my God, he's so obsessed with us.
Meghan Markle, they've just learned the hardest of lessons, which is, if you start a brawl, do not be surprised if you end up getting punched twice as hard. In fact, South Park has just knocked them out.
This woman looks to me like a malignant narcissist. This woman has zero self-awareness.
I don't care. Don't care. What the hell? What did he just say? He victimized me. It's because I'm an ethnic woman. He can't do that. I'll say, wait, you're ethnic? This is an outrage. There's this horrible spy who lives across the street from us, and we're gonna get him back by changing our brand.
Is this you? Sorority girl, actress, influencer, victim.
Yeah, that's totally me.
When Meghan Markle sat down for what was supposed to be an empowering and heartfelt podcast interview with Jamie Kern Lima, no one expected it to backfire this hard. Just days after the episode aired, South Park hit with one of its most brutal parodies yet. Nothing was off limits. But this roast exposed a pattern of a calculated image, a need for validation, and a growing public backlash. Because the truth is, South Park may have delivered the punch, and now her entire brand could be collapsing. The moment Meghan Markle's podcast with Jamie Kern Lima dropped, the reactions were immediate. Framed as a strong conversation between two successful women, the interview quickly became a target for criticism. Listeners across social media described it as forced, overly dramatic, and embarrassingly self-indulgent.
Successful lifestyle brand as ever. We sold out of everything in 45 minutes.
Amazing. You've been working so hard.
Oh my gosh, I worked so hard. I work very hard, and I'm still working very hard. Just not for the royal family. Yet, I still insist on being called Her Royal Highness.
I love that your eyes are sparkling right now. You know, Meghan, how are you today? Which, by the way, I just have to say, yes.
Enjoy them.
I forgot to have fun. You're right. You're right.
That 2-hour podcast that I just had to sit through with Jamie Kern Lima, who is also very cut off from the rest of the world.
You've had it harder than literally any other person on the planet. Even Jesus, nailed up to the cross, didn't suffer as much as you. I know. Just love that this is what the Lord willed me to do with my will. To make another podcast where celebrities can talk about how hard their lives are, not to help people. No.
Are you okay? Oh, that's so kind. I am. I'm better than okay. What's my line? How are you?
I know, you always make it about me.
I do.
So now let's discuss.
Wait, you're supposed to talk about how amazing I am at being a friend to you?
What we're doing here is as, if not more, important than solving world hunger.
Wow.
I practiced really hard to come off as genuine.
So did I.
I think it's working.
I do too. It's divinely ordered how many times we've said I and me. Why did you say yes to this show?
And then you're like, do it. I was like, what? You're like, do it. I was like, what? You're like, do it. And then I was scared.
Yeah.
Within days, South Park released an episode that dismantled everything about the podcast. This wasn't the first time. South Park had taken a hit at Meghan and Harry. But this time, something was different. The writers were holding up a mirror to a narrative and asking, who is this really for? They mocked the awkward cadence of the interview, the overly sentimental language, and the almost robotic way Meghan spoke about her struggles. It was less about sharing a journey and more about reciting a script. The show's characters didn't even need to exaggerate much. They simply mimicked the tone, the phrases, and the sense of emotional distance. Because for many, the podcast had felt more like a brand pitch than a real conversation. What South Park chose to spotlight next was the sense that Meghan's vulnerability didn't feel real. In the podcast, every story was delivered with odd slowness. Every sentence seemed to teeter on the edge of tears. But there was a strange lack of actual emotion. South Park picked up on this instantly. Their parody characters mimicked Meghan's tone, complete with dramatic pauses and fake sincerity. The show took aim at this emotional theater. In one bit, a character would burst into fake tears mid-sentence, only to instantly snap back into normal conversation seconds later. Another scene featured exaggerated affirmations, with characters nodding excessively, praising each other in circles, and gasping dramatically at bland revelations. Yet, it was eerily accurate. Media lit up with users admitting they'd felt the same discomfort too. The satire exposed a performance, and the message was clear. If your vulnerability feels choreographed, it doesn't connect, even Even worse, the parody made viewers rewatch the original podcast through a new lens. Every soft smile, every pause, every thank you for asking, suddenly, felt like a script. And South Park didn't need to say it outright. They just let the awkwardness speak for itself.
But you're the same.
You're the same.
Like, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So why did you say yes to doing this show?
Because it's you. And to me, that means...
Do you think you'll be married forever?
Yes.
I have a letter.
He's also a fox, if you haven't noticed. My husband's very, very handsome. But his heart is even more beautiful.
Something's up here. See that little shoulder shrug when she said yes?
Yes, yes.
Did you hear how high her voice was when she said yes?
Yes.
When we're stressed, our larynx closes up a little bit and our voice tone gets a little bit higher. That's why the pitch of the yes is so high.
But before I go to bed almost every night, I email them.
Wow.
They will end up at one point in their life, maybe when they're 16 or when they're 18, that I say, here's an email that I've been keeping for you.
Because that's really what you want when you're 18. 40,000 emails, Maureen, from your mother.
These emails are so that when my children are of age, they can come to me and say, oh my God, you loved us so much. It's me.
After dragging Meghan's emotional delivery, South Park turned its attention to her language. Specifically, the endless stream of buzzwords and motivational catchphrases. Words like growth, power, resilience, and divinely. Ordered were tossed around so frequently that they lost all meaning.
Wow. I know.
Yeah.
You just have to prove, like you have the proof that you're proving that you can prove the proof.
It's divine intervention that God brought you to this podcast today.
Want some pretzels? I put them in a bag myself.
These pretzels are divinely ordered.
The pretzels of Sussex.
The satire from South Park was blunt but brilliant. It wasn't that these words were bad on their own, it was the way they were used. South Park exposed how hollow that can feel when it's not backed by anything real or specific. Viewers couldn't help but laugh because they'd heard it all before, and that's what made the mockery sting. The repetition in Meghan's interview didn't feel like authentic messaging. It felt like branding, carefully selected words, chosen not to connect but to trend. South Park called that out with direct accuracy. Online reactions confirmed the hit. Commenters said the buzzword overload in the real podcast had been exhausting, and that South Park perfectly captured how it drowned out any genuine emotion. If there was one thing Meghan Markle clearly wanted to project in her interview, it was authenticity. She appeared makeup-free, dressed in cozy clothing, and spoke about her personal routines, including writing emotional emails to her children every night. It was all crafted to feel intimate, raw, and relatable. But South Park saw right through it in one scene. South Park's parody version of Meghan delivers a dramatic speech about writing thousands of emails to her future teenage children, only for the surrounding characters to recoil in awkward silence. The joke wasn't about motherhood or love. It was about how even the most personal details can feel like performance. Another moment in the parody showed characters announcing they were going makeup-free and then waiting for applause. South Park was mocking how personal choices had been transformed into dramatic moments for public consumption. Viewers online echoed the sentiment, calling out how the entire interview felt manufactured vulnerability.
When you were saying, like, do you want to just do like cozies and no makeup? I like the idea of like, okay, great, let's let them see us.
Nobody talks like that and nobody acts like that, because that's weird behavior that we're seeing from both of these people if we're supposed to be thinking under the impression that they're being authentic.
South Park was criticizing how even sincerity can become part of an image campaign. Meghan's choice to appear unfiltered was read as strategic, and when viewers started seeing through that, the backlash wasn't far behind. As South Park dug deeper, the real-world consequences started to spill out. Meghan Markle's podcast had already grabbed public skepticism, but after South Park's viral takedown, the conversation moved from cringe to career-threatening. Viewers weren't just laughing at her staged vulnerability anymore. They were questioning everything, especially her continued use of royal titles. And South Park mocked Meghan's obsession with being referred to as Her Royal Highness. Even after publicly walking away from the monarchy in the episode, Meghan's cartoon character insists on being called a duchess, using the title in social settings even after supposedly leaving it behind. It was an exaggerated detail, but one pulled directly from real reports. In real life, Meghan has continued using variations of the HRH title behind closed doors, despite it being officially stripped after her and Harry's royal exit.
Zoom in here and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. That is a title that was stripped from her when she and Harry made their whole racism debacle and left the UK, left their royal duties, and moved to the US to bug all of us. She's using it in private with her friends. That's even weirder than if they were still trying to milk the titles in public. That is just like all the confirmation that I need that this woman is just obsessed with being a royal, that is all this was all about. That she's angry that she screwed the pooch by claiming racism and basically getting kicked out of the family. She just can't give up the HRH titles that quickly. Like, this is literally what she has always wanted.
And the timing couldn't have been worse. Not long after the episode aired, rumors began swirling that studios like A24 and Paramount were distancing themselves from Meghan entirely. Some reports suggested deals were shelved or quietly terminated, citing creative differences or public image concerns. Whether directly tied to the podcast or not, the optics were harsh. What began as a podcast meant to showcase growth and transformation had backfired spectacularly. Instead of reintroducing Meghan as a down-to-earth leader, it revived the public's image of her as calculated, image-obsessed, and still tethered to a title she claimed to renounce. And with her brand starting to unravel, South Park wasn't done yet. When Meghan Markle speaks about fashion, she doesn't just talk about style. She talks about values, ethical brands, women-led companies, conscious consumerism. On paper, it's admirable, but South Park took Meghan's carefully curated fashion statements and turned them into absurd costume choices, worn by characters who clearly had no idea what they were supporting in one scene. A character struts into a room dressed in exaggerated, activist chic, labels with slogans like empathy now and feminist energy stitched into every garment. But when asked what the outfit actually means, they fumble, shrug, and change the subject. Meghan's fashion choices, which she often promotes as deeply symbolic, were portrayed as performative accessories designed to score social points rather than spark real change. Over the years, Meghan has received praise for promoting sustainable fashion and spotlighting minority-owned businesses. But critics have also pointed out how seamlessly those values are woven into high-end, highly publicized appearances. It creates a disconnect where the messaging feels more like marketing. South Park tapped into that discomfort, showing characters more obsessed with their wardrobe's message than the actual message itself. Many users online felt the show perfectly captured the odd tension between cause and image, where every outfit feels like it's been focus grouped to perfection. Meghan's real-life fashion statements, once seen as bold and progressive, now risk being viewed as fake moments of brand building, but South Park wasn't done. In fact, they saved one of their most subtle and most devastating punches for last. Out of all the themes South Park mocked in Meghan Markle's podcast, it was a single word that delivered one of the episode's quietest, yet most devastating, blows. That word was yet. Harmless on its own, but Meghan used it like a mantra, weaving it into nearly every answer. To her, yet was a symbol of hope, of growth, of possibility. But to South Park, it became the ultimate parody, a word so overused it lost all meaning in the episode. The writers took this tiny linguistic habit and cranked it to absurd levels. Characters began tacking yet onto the end of every sentence, no matter how nonsensical. I'm not annoying, yet I haven't hijacked the conversation, yet I haven't made this all about me. Yet, it turned the hopeful phrase into a running joke, and viewers instantly caught the reference. What South Park managed to highlight with this simple joke was the growing sense that Meghan's messaging isn't as empowering as she thinks. It's rehearsed, carefully fixed to feel inspiring, but increasingly sounding robotic. Yet was supposed to symbolize possibility. But in the context of South Park's parody, it symbolized emptiness, a placeholder word that suggested transformation without ever showing. Fans of the show and critics alike pointed to this moment as one of the episode's most clever. It was subtle, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention, but once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it, just like in the real interview. Meghan's constant use of yet became a symbol of her entire communication style being polished, purposeful, and maybe a little too perfect by the end of the episode. The word yet wasn't just a punchline. It was a way to show how even the smallest details can reveal the biggest cracks in a public image. And South Park's message was clear. When your every word sounds like a brand slogan, eventually the audience stops listening, but there was one more twist, because South Park's joke wasn't just about mocking a podcast. It was a reflection of a shift in how the public sees Meghan. By the time the credits rolled, it was clear South Park hadn't just roasted a podcast, they'd dissected an entire persona. Their satire went beyond jokes. It exposed a growing weariness in the public when it comes to Meghan Markle. The episode didn't spread any rumors. It simply amplified what people were already feeling, but hadn't quite said out loud. That something about her image, her voice, and her message no longer felt authentic. What South Park managed to do was hold up a mirror to every buzzword, every motivational phrase, and every strategic pause in that interview, but warped just enough to show how strange it all seemed. And that reflection sparked something. Viewers didn't just laugh, they started re-evaluating, rewatching the original interview, questioning the intent. Suddenly, moments that once passed as heartfelt started to feel hollow and even manipulative. This was satire with a purpose. Meghan had built her brand on vulnerability, empowerment, and healing. But South Park pointed out how even those ideals can backfire. Authenticity doesn't come from saying the right things. It comes from being real. And for many, this podcast and Meghan's entire media presence no longer felt real at all. That's what made the South Park episode so impactful. The subtle way Meghan smiles. When she says something deep, the phrases she repeats, the stories she shares just enough of. South Park caught it all, and they did what they do best, exaggerated the truth just enough to make everyone stop and take a second look. For Meghan, the consequences may be just beginning, because when even satire starts to feel more grounded than your actual interview, the problem isn't the parody, it's the performance. In the end, South Park didn't destroy Meghan Markle with cruelty, they did it with clarity. By stripping away the layers of branding, buzzwords, and emotional polish, they revealed something far more uncomfortable, a public figure who may have lost touch with what authenticity really means. And now, as viewers laugh, cringe, and question everything, Meghan's brand faces a new kind of crisis. Not scandal, but skepticism. Because once the illusion cracks, it's hard to put it back together. So what do you think? Did South Park go too far? Or did they just say what everyone else has been thinking?